excited. So if you need me to slow down, Jess, you could let me know, because I get very excited and love all of this. So I'm going to actually hide the folks and we will get going. So today I want to talk to you about how smart women like us, block their success. So there are reasons why you might feel stuck. We're going to talk about 3 of them. And part of the reason is because you are so smart that your success might not be coming the way that you'd like it to be coming. These things are not your fault, the vast majority of them, but they are your responsibility if you'd like to make the impact that you want to make on the world to address them. And there are lots and lots of ways that you can do that. So we're going to share some of those ways, some practical tips as we go through the slides. We will have some time for questions at the end. And full disclosure, we also want to talk to you about our program, The Radiant Reset. You will get all kinds of value out of our talk today. And I hope that you will share it with someone that you think it will be helpful to. Okay, so first of all, here's our learning goals. You will learn 3 factors that contribute to your stuck feeling. We are going to give you some tips to mitigate those factors, and then we're going to talk with you about a program to kickstart things and get you out of your cycle of shoulds, because we are often guilty of that. For those of you that don't know me personally, I'm Sandy. I was an identified gifted kid, and now I love Paula Prober's term, a rainforest-minded human, who is rainforest-minded people. We're complex, we have lots of layers, we're very intelligent, but also can shoot ourselves in the foot in certain ways. Much like a rainforest is so different from a typical forest, rainforest-minded people are multi-layered and complex and have depth beyond what one would expect from a typical forest. I have an education background. I taught for nearly 20 years in all the way from elementary school up to college. My main love, though, is adolescence and middle school. I have 2 master's degrees, one in curriculum and instruction and one in creative writing. Plus, I have a gifted endorsement and have created programming around those topics and lectured both locally and nationally, trained teams and things like that. Now, I have taken all of that experience, combined it with working in marketing, and I am a coach and community builder. My signature community is a 5,000 member community of women called St. Pete Girl Boss. Some of you might be members of that. And I also coach women and sometimes men who have a dream, who aren't sure where to go with it, who need a pivot, who need inspiration. I do a lot of work with them. You can learn more about me on my website. I'm also a special needs mom. I have 4 kids, 2 are autistic. Actually, probably 3 are autistic, if I'm being honest. And I also have ADHD and a trauma background as well. So that's what makes my work special needs, neurodivergence, and trauma informed. It's not because I cause trauma, it's because I understand it and therefore take many steps to ensure that the work can be accessed even by people that may be impacted by those things. I'm also very happy with my situation because it takes bravery to pivot when you don't feel like something is right. And I've done it many times. And I'm so excited to share the benefit of that with you. Also, why is it a clam that's happy? Are clams happy? Can they feel emotion? I don't know. I digress. Anyway, here's me. So let's talk about then what is getting in your way, right? A lot of people blame, wow, well, I'm just not organized. Oh, I'm just lazy. You know, I put up a question in my group yesterday, about what people's self-care blocks are. And it's very interesting to see the language of them talking to themselves and saying, it's me, I'm lazy, I don't do that. And it's like, okay, but take the language away from that. Stop blaming yourself. And let's talk about the factors that are impacting whatever it is that you're trying to do to up level. Even if you're very successful, a lot of times you need to examine where you are to go to the next level. You may have done a lot of work, a lot of healing, but every time you try to up level to a different place or make a pivot, you're going to encounter additional things you have to address. It's just the nature of how the soul navigates the universe, right? So the first factor is you are female. I'm sorry, but I'm not. I love being a woman, but we are women that were raised in this society. And because of that, there are factors that are going to automatically become barriers or hurdles that you have to address in order to be the full expression of yourself, right? Because society colors all these things. So what are 3 of those things? Let's chat about them. There's something called good girl syndrome, right? Also traditional gender roles in Western society. Now there are much heavier places that gender roles actually threaten women's, like they'll get their hands cut off if they do certain things, but it's still difficult and dangerous to be a woman in Western society, and we'll talk about why. And then trauma, right? Being raised female inherently comes with trauma, and we will talk about that as well. So number one, good girl syndrome. And I took this quote from a paper that I found and it was a journal article, and it says, the seeds of good girl syndrome are frequently sown in childhood. According to a Stanford University study, desirable traits in women include warmth, loyalty, and cheerfulness, while men are expected to be assertive, independent, and dominant. Many parents nurture these corresponding characteristics in their sons and daughters. So even if you weren't raised well by people who nurtured these characteristics, there's still things that you will see happening out in the outside world, right? You'll see them, like girls, for example, spend 2 hours a day on social media versus about 90 minutes for boys. And you see these kinds of things being nurtured in women. Now, why is that a problem? Well, because good girl syndrome creates this fear of disappointing others, this desire for perfection, this obedience to rules so that you'll be seen as valid, right? And so women have this reluctance oftentimes to speak up. If they have a natural leadership quality, if they are outspoken, they're often seen as bitches or something like that. And society will shut them up real fast, right? It becomes the root of people pleasing. It becomes the root of putting oneself last, of feeling stifled. And none of this is intentional, right? It's not consciously intentional. However, it is something that we all deal with, right? The leaders that develop out of this good girl syndrome become leaders who are more like men, right? They try to, okay, well, fine, I'm not going to be female, I'm going to be a leader. Like, no. There's things that you can do that keep you in your feminine that are also good leadership traits. So good girl syndrome is one thing that's not your fault. You were probably programmed this way. And so if you find that, oh gosh, I don't even know what self-care is, oh my goodness, I have to get all this done before I can work on my stuff, that could be where it's from. So take a good look at that. If you find yourself putting yourself last, if you find yourself working on your dreams on the side while you do other things for other people, let's talk about why that is. Where did you get that idea that that's what you needed to do? Right? Ooh, let me go back. I skipped that slide. So gender roles are the second thing, and they really do feed into this idea of good girl syndrome. Gender roles, as we know, they harm women. Not, again, consciously, even if you're raised by really great people, because again, as we mentioned, if you become a female leader, a lot of times you feel you have to emulate men. There are multiple studies that characteristics that our women have more of a propensity towards because of our brain structure and our hormone structure actually work better in leadership situations than some of these traits and propensities that are traditionally associated with maleness because of their hormone structure, because of their brain structure, right? Women can see connections. They have a deeper sense of empathy because of the levels of oxytocin in the body, different things like that, right? So female leaders are more powerful, yet to assume a leadership position, we completely discount those characteristics, and that can actually keep us from being the full expression of who we want to be. And this also creates stress. It limits choices for us. A lot of times women will take careers that are more traditionally female because that's where they're told they need to be. Also, female identifying individuals are far more likely to endure abuse and be quiet when there's inequities. And this exposure, again, as I mentioned, is everywhere. It's on TV, it's in toys at the store. I have a very fiery 8-year-old who I am trying very hard to nurture that fire because I want her to be who she is. And she's so funny because she'll be like, this is dumb. Like, why is this pink? I'm like, well, because that's what the manufacturer thought it should be. And so they're very like anti-marketing my kids, but I want them to have those conversations. And we should be having those conversations as a community too, about how gender roles do limit us. And as someone that runs an entrepreneurship group, it's very interesting when you look at the businesses that women have begun, many of them are caregiving businesses. I have very few, contractors, things like that, when women still have those qualities and are pretty incredible. So just something to think about. If you have made choices that you feel are stifling you and you feel it's time for a pivot, if you feel like you're not doing something you're passionate about, whatever, is it good girl syndrome? Is it a gender role that's keeping you down? We mentioned trauma, and I want in the chat, do me a favor. Can you please drop a 1 if you've ever had an event in your life that you would consider a traumatic event, big T trauma, like an attack, like an accident, something like that, or little T trauma as well. Divorces, things like that, something that's considered traumatic. Drop a 1 in the chat if you consider yourself someone who has suffered some kind of trauma, even secondary trauma, watching a traumatic event. Drop a 1 if you feel that. Jess, what are we seeing? Lots of 1s.
Sandy, we're seeing only 1s here.
Well, I see
only 1.
I would drop a 1 if I were popping in the chat. So interestingly enough, nearly half of all women in the US will experience trauma at some point in their lives. It's much lower for men. I think it's like 20% versus, and 10 to 12% actually live with post-traumatic stress disorder. And many of them don't realize the impacts of post-traumatic stress. They just, feel chronically overwhelmed, things like that. Whereas with men, I think it's something like 5% of men live with this. And when you look at what happens in terms of control of women's choices, women's bodies, like there's lots of things that just happen in our society that tell women that we are invalid. And it, again, translates to our environment, including to other people, men who we interact with, right? So there's this level of assumption that if you're female, you probably have some kind of traumatic event. So just process that for yourself, because again, if you have trauma, you're in fight or flight mode all the time. I like to tell my clients, who are like, boy, I just can't seem to get anything done, that have like a clear traumatic background. I say, listen, your brain thinks you're being chased by a tiger all the time. If you're being chased by a tiger, you're not going to like drop to the ground and get out your business plan. Like you have to sort of get yourself centered before you can move forward. So all of those things about just being female, we already have those just by waking up and being female in the world. And those become issues for us to address later. Okay, so all these things, I want you to know it's not your fault. How does this impact us? We talked a little bit about this. We tend to apologize. We tend to over-explain, people please, always be seen as good. We're worried about being seen as difficult. And we're worried about being seen, period. And this is a problem because if we are in a leadership role, it's high visibility, right? So a lot of clients that I work with, a lot of women I work with have trouble being seen. They don't want to be on camera. They don't want to talk in front of people, but it's very hard to put your work out there if you have that issue. We can also be toxically positive, self-reliant. Oh, I don't need help. Oh, I can do it all. Oh, drop a 2 in the chat if you have trouble asking for help. Or if I said, what can I do to support you? You'd be like, I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm good. I got it. Drop a 2 if that's you. Drop a 2 in the chat. If you're like, I don't need help. I'm good. I don't need it. I don't need it. Are we seeing some 2s there, Jess? It's very hard for us to receive. It's very hard sometimes to receive when, oh yeah, look at all those 2s. See, there we are. It's very hard for us to receive often as women. And if you are a woman of color, many of these things are increased because being in society as a woman of color is even harder, right? So something to think about. So what can we do? Well, cultivate your community, cultivate your voice, try to work on speaking up in low risk environments, try to find some trauma resources and do some background work on your values. And then this is really hard. You may have to learn to ask for support in tiny ways, asking someone to get you a drink or a coffee at the store. Little ways that teach yourself that it's okay to receive will help you move past some of these barriers. So as such, the expectation of codependency increases. We've got people pleasing, we've got perfectionism, and these are barriers you probably don't even know you have, right, in terms of how we're going. So you maybe don't like to hold other people accountable, you're not confrontational. I see this all the time. Oh, I place myself last. What's self-care? I don't know what that is. That comes from all those things we just talked about. You have to know or do everything perfectly before you can move forward. Taking imperfect action feels so yucky because we have this subconscious fear that something's going to happen to us if we don't do it right from all of those factors we just discussed. Also, you fail to communicate your value. If you're in an environment where you work for someone else or you're competing for contracts, things like that, communicating your value, tooting your own horn doesn't feel good to us. We're taught to be like, oh, it's fine. I had all these other people help. Like, no, man, speak up. That's not considered a feminine trait. but it's only because we've been trained that way. So it is okay to own all of those things. If you don't, you are blocking your success. And all of these things are things that a coach, a program, a teacher, a therapist can help you with, especially if they're very deep rooted. And learn to have those crucial conversations. Learn to do that. If you don't put yourself first, you're giving your business, your dreams, your friends, whatever, the literal dregs at the bottom of the barrel. And that's not how you want to show up in the world, right? That's not how you become the most successful version of you. And success means different things to different people, right? If you need to reparent, there's a great book called How to Do the Work by Nicole LaPera. Reparenting will help you relearn some patterns and learn to trust yourself. Build small habits that stack on each other, because trying to make sweeping change all at once is not how neuroplasticity works necessarily. Learn anxiety tolerance. So CBT, DBT, classes, books. There's a great one called The Mountain Is You that I love by Brianna Wiest. So you can take imperfect action, even if it makes you anxious, even if you're likely to fail. It's better to get it done, to move forward, to have that hard conversation, and then decide on boundaries in advance and keep them. If you don't know your values, if you don't know what you want, if you don't know how you want to be treated, or you don't have a sense of what your value actually is, and you don't love yourself, it's very hard to even choose what you want your boundaries to be. So you have to kind of do that work. But boundaries are about saying, no, I don't have the space for that. Or maybe that's not right for me. Or I have to leave this interaction, this relationship, this job, because it doesn't reflect what I want. Jessica and I were talking about this last night. If it's not a hell yes, it's a no, and that's okay. You have to have boundaries with yourself. Like, I'm logging off the computer at 5 p.m. because I have a life and I need to exercise. Or boundaries with other people. Hey, the way you speak to me in meetings is really unfortunate, and I'm not going to deal with that. I'm sorry, talk to me when you're feeling better, or whatever. So boundaries are honestly so important in order to move forward with your success. And if they're not easy for you, like I know they're not always easy for me, they're easier once you practice. It's really important to become a badass with your boundaries. Okay, so this is number 3, and this is super important because this is the hill I will die on, and the one that I'm really trained to work with is we oftentimes, as really intelligent people, don't realize how different we are, how we stand out from the crowd, and how those things can have both positive and negative impacts on us. And what do I mean by that we don't realize that we're different? Well, smart people, people that are creative thinkers, people with high IQs, people who are heavily artistic. And did you know giftedness also shows up in leadership abilities? So all of these people like us, we think differently, right? Gifted brains actually have a different structure. They have a thicker corpus callosum. They have more matter, more mass rather. They have more gray matter. The myelination of a gifted brain is different. And so what happens during this, well, we'll talk about brain structures, but they actually have different structures, and neurodivergence often co-occurs. Neurodivergence can create both barriers and opportunities, but we have to understand our own brain to be able to use those things, right? Creative thinkers, especially, if you look at the research of gifted people, if you are a creative thinker or you're verbally gifted, you actually have a higher co-occurrence of anxiety disorders, of bipolar disorder, of OCD. And gifted people, because they see connections in so many different places, can overthink. And if you're trained to look for the negative because trauma, you're trying to protect yourself, you can become someone who shuts yourself down because you see 50 different ways how this can go wrong, right? Rather than simply preparing and understanding. And high achievers often don't develop habits that they need to tolerate success. And there's a lot behind that. We're going to talk about that in a second. So again, we talked about this, more anxious, more sensitive, and prone to burnout. So what happens with a typical brain is they build all these neural connections till about the age of 9. And then between 9 and 20, the brain prunes back the stuff they don't use. With a gifted brain, that pruning period is different. And with a neurodivergent brain, autism, ADHD, it is also different. It's sporadic, right? So there are propensities that gifted people have, it's almost like, there's like sommeliers who can smell like, what year a grape was grown. Think of a gifted brain kind of like that, where it has these hyper calibrations, just like an autistic brain, just like an ADHD brain, these hyper calibrations that work really well if you understand your strengths, but can also make, for example, being in a super loud, noisy room very difficult, can push you to the point because you're so passionate about everything that you'll just burn yourself out. So understanding yourself is super important. Because we're different, finding like you're actually connecting with people can be more difficult, both as a child and as an adult, which can contribute to this people pleasing or masking and hiding yourself so that people will like you. Also, gifted people and neurodivergent people are far more likely to have executive function issues, right? And that means a couple different things. We just talked about sensitivities. So, Remy, no. So let's talk about those habits. It's very important that we look at this because this is something that I professionally have worked really hard against. And as women, we still deal with this. If you were very bright and things came easy for you in school, you were not necessarily taught how to ask questions. You didn't have to struggle in front of authority during formative years. You didn't have to say, I don't understand this. And so we build this identity that everything is easy and we're super brilliant, but then we don't have the skills to persevere. And resilience is actually one of the strongest indicators of success, even more than IQ. And if you don't build this, oh, I made a mistake, I need to ask for help, I need to pivot skill, you lack resilience and growth mindset, which puts you in a place that becomes very difficult for growth. So cultivating a growth mindset, like I think it's Carol Dweck is someone who's done a lot of work with this. It's Angela Duckworth also. It's important that you cultivate those. A lot of very smart people will hit a wall at some point. Like for me, it was college because you didn't develop study skills. Like if that ever happened to you, I would love for you to drop a 3 in the chat. If you hit a point at some point in your life where you were like, wow, I don't have the skills to do this. I don't know how to study like this. I don't know how to manage my time like this. You never had to. I could procrastinate in college or in high school. I think I read my summer reading books, the 3 of them, on the bus ride back from a trip to New York City and did my papers that weekend for honors English, or sorry, AP English, my senior year. I was the only person who got an A on that major project. And that didn't prepare me for shit, y'all. It was not good. So do you see a lot of 3s in the chat, Jess? Are there people who didn't build these habits too?
So many 3s.
Yeah, there they are. So the reason I bring that up is because you are probably using those same maladaptive coping strategies and calling them self-sabotage now. You never learned those coping strategies when you were developmentally. Most people do because you didn't have to. So now it might be difficult for you to establish a routine, for you to keep a routine, for you to hold yourself accountable. And you probably beat yourself up about it. But guess what? You just didn't learn it because you didn't have to. You could skate by. When something means something more to you and it is challenging, that's when you need to build up those skills. So if you're running into difficulties, finding support is really important. Your parents maybe reinforce like, oh, why did you get a B? Oh, what is that? And those are things, again, that we don't build the habits that we require, or your parents may have been a mess and just never taught you. Also, you can be very hard on yourself if you're a smart individual, if you have those kinds of brains, because you expect perfection, and your peers can get down on you when you're younger and go, oh, you don't know the answer. And therefore you're afraid to ask questions. It all adds up to things that, again, block your success later. And executive function. So this is something that, especially with gifted people and with neurodivergent people and creative thinkers, your executive function skills are kind of like, there's a SpongeBob episode where he's got like all these people running around in his head, like putting stuff in filing cabinets and things. That's kind of your executive function system. It's the secretary in your head that helps you break down tasks and work with them, right? So the 3 that we tend to struggle with most as gifted women, as intelligent people, are task initiation. That means getting started. Perfectionism is a big barrier to that. So is overthinking. Prioritizing all the things we want to do and organizing those into steps. We just are like, I don't even know where to begin, or you're doing 10 things in a day and you're not actually making progress anywhere, or finishing something, task completion. We get bored. We think we should see results a little bit sooner because our brain works really quickly, but the world doesn't always work really quickly. And so task completion can be a drag. If you are autistic, if you have ADHD, Sometimes it's very helpful to have, a body double, some accountability partner. That's helpful for gifted people too, because again, we're used to doing it by ourselves because it's just easier that way. So executive function skills are important to cultivate. And if we don't understand them, we may be blocking our success. So in summation, you didn't always learn the skills or receive the support that you needed developmentally. You became associated with achievement in your head, like must do, must do, must do. And that's where you placed your value rather than on your authenticity and understanding who you are. So therefore, you never really got to know yourself. And now you may find yourself in a place where you're like, well, I'm unsatisfied, or, oh, what do I do with this? Or you have to ask for validation, or you hire a team. You don't even need a team because you don't think you can do it on your own. And, that's all, again, contributing to blocks in your success. So this impacts you because struggles are embarrassing. You don't want to fail. We don't place value on failure. We may still be trying to fit in and not know ourselves in all kinds of capacities, And so all of these things contribute to blocks in up leveling to the place where you want to be. There is this inherent sense of, if I'm not doing it perfectly, I am not worthy. If I'm not a good girl, I am not worthy. If I'm not helping everybody out, I am not worthy. And I'll tell you what, guys, at the root of self-care, at the root of putting yourself before other people, of boundaries, of everything, is self-compassion and self-worth. And all of these things, being female in the world, having trauma, all, struggling, having a gifted brain, they can all impact your self-compassion, self-perception, and self-worth. It's very hard to have supportive boundaries if you don't know yourself or if you don't feel worthy of those things. So if you're otherwise neurodivergent, I also want to tell you, or if you're verbally gifted or creative thinker, please pay attention to your mental health, because again, you may have a propensity towards being depressed or having anxiety disorders. And then masking overwhelm and a skewed self-concept will be even stronger in you. It is very, very common for entrepreneurs to have ADHD. It's very common for gifted people to display characteristics that look like those too. And you may run into this as well. There's someone you could look at. His name is Casimir, I think is his first name. Dabrowski is his last name. It's Dabrowski. Dabrowski has this great theory you should read. It's called Dabrowski's theory of positive disintegration. And he talks about how gifted people have overexcitabilities. And we'll go back just a little bit. And so those overexcitabilities are sensitivities, motor overexcitabilities, all these things that look like neurodivergent behaviors, that look like neurodivergent impact, that simply come from having a gifted brain. And we should approach them the same way. So if you look at having a highly calibrated brain, if you look at the way trauma is stored in our bodies, there's a great book called The Body Keeps the Score by, I think it's Bessel van der Kolk or something like that. It's fabulous. We store all of that in our body. We store all of these things in our subconscious. We're highly sensitive and highly calibrated. You can see why there's a lot of things going on that may impact our success. And that's really important, that we understand ourselves and the way that we think. So what can you do? First of all, to start clearing out some of this, lean into your body, doing embodiment things, movement, EFT tapping. Learn to identify your emotion in your body so you can use it as guidance. We have dissociated ourselves as women and as smart people from our emotions and our anxieties pretty significantly, because we don't want to feel those things. If our negative emotions are telling us something that might make someone upset, we better ignore it, right? But leaning into your body and reducing that trauma impact is super important. Creating routines and accountability structures can be really tricky, but it will help you feel safe and it will help you be successful. Many times you need a written plan that you can follow. You need someone to remind you, an accountability partner, so you can establish those routines. You may have routines that you already follow. If you are a perfectionist or you have ADHD, you may be hyper routine oriented to the point where it's like pathological. But having routines that are healthy, doing things in the same order, it doesn't have to be like, I must do this at 8 a.m. It can be literally like, when I wake up, I have a half an hour to myself, I have a coffee, whatever. So routines and accountability structures, checking in with people, body doubling, having Zoom co-works with people, that can all help you take imperfect action and take steps forward in rowing your boat. And this is really important. Building in silliness and fun keeps your energy on a high vibrational level. So you don't get into the I need to come last, woe is me kind of mentality that blocks you, right? Exploring your own interest is super, super important. When was the last time, and you can drop it in the chat, give me, just tell me, and you could drop a 1. When was the last time you did something just for fun? That's it. Like just for fun, like you played the guitar and you suck at it, or you went to the beach, or you tell me the last time you did something for you, not for anybody else, that you were like, boy, this will be fun. Drop a 1 in the chat if you've done that in the past month. Drop a 1 in the chat if you've done something just for you. That's just fun and silly for yourself in the past month. I see some people. Good for you. Yay. I'm so glad. Yes, keep doing that, because if you look at Abraham Hicks, any of these sort of manifestation people, that's one of the things that you need to do to keep yourself connected to yourself, to your higher self, is fun. Even just a dance party in the morning while you make your coffee, right? Exploring your own interests too is important. That's going to give you hints and clues to your values, to your value system. So you can build things around authenticity rather than around the expectations of other people, right? It's so important that you do those things. Okay, so the bottom line is get to know yourself, get some help, accountability, understanding how your brain works, and cultivate using your emotions and intuition to make decisions for yourself. If you are trying to up level, if you're trying to earn 7 figures instead of 6, earn 6 instead of 5, if you're trying to establish a business, if you're trying to figure out what's right for you, if you're trying to find a relationship that suits you, all of those things, having your intuition at your disposal is essential. And having to ask for external validation because we have good girl syndrome issues, because we don't know ourselves, all of that is going to keep us in a box that is what other people think that we are. You can surround yourself with people that are helpful, that are mirrors to what you need, but it's important that you cultivate those things within yourself, and that you cultivate little routines, that you cultivate ways to feel good, because we get on ourselves that we're not perfect, but little practices are actually all you need to be supportive of yourself. Get rooting in your value, and your authenticity will help you understand that you are enough. That's enough. And you just become like unbuckwithable when you understand yourself enough to be like, that's not for me. Right? So learning to receive is huge. I would love for you to tell me in the chat by dropping a 2, who finds it uncomfortable to receive help, to receive compliments, to let people give you things without feeling like you need to give something to them. Drop a 2 in the chat if it's tough for you to receive. If it's tough for you to receive. If it's tough for you to receive things like that, it is going to be tough for the universe to give you what you want. It's going to be tough for the universe to deliver all that extra money, that relationship, all of that, because you may keep yourself busy and not even have space to receive, right? So if you don't have balance, if you don't have fun, if you're not accustomed to receiving and it feels weird, there, I see you guys. Yep, I see you guys. Perfect. If you don't do those things, then you're holding yourself back. And I know it seems counterintuitive because we live in this hustle culture where people are like, go do the thing. You got to do the thing, right? And sometimes the thing isn't the fun part, but the end result is, right? But learning to receive will help you delegate. It will help you grow your teams. It will help you understand, the parts that you're good at can be given away, or the parts you're not good at rather can be given away so you can work within your zone of genius. Receiving is okay. That's how the money comes in. That's how the love comes in. Having fun is important, and creating balance is also important so that you have time to cultivate new things and you're not giving your hopes, dreams, and stuff like the bottom of the barrel, because that's no good. Stop linking your value to what you do for others and what you earn. You are inherently worthy. Once you understand your authenticity, you can put your own magic into what you do. And even if you do something that, a million other people do, you're the only one that's going to do it the way that you do. So if you are emulating what other people think or what other people are doing, you are inherently blocking the thing that's going to make you successful without even thinking about it. You're subconsciously blocking that. So having routines, having structure, having accountability provides the safety for your brain to go, okay, we're safe, we can create, we can play. And then that's when really amazing things happen, because that's when you begin to see what can come out of you, uniquely you. So accountability, all you know, being able to apply that can be really, really difficult, but you need to be able to do that. And then placing yourself and your joy as a priority is also going to be difficult. So, because a lot of us know this, right? A lot of us know we need accountability buddies. A lot of us have had retreats that we've gone on, classes that we've taken, books that we've read. But I tell you what, if you struggle with actually applying that knowledge and you get into this cycle of like, I should, can you drop in the chat just any emoji, drop it in the chat if you know a lot of this stuff, but you struggle to actually apply it to yourself. Drop something in the chat that's any emoji or a number or whatever. Just drop something down there and tell me, yeah, I get myself into these shame cycles or these should cycles because I know this stuff, but it's hard for me to actually create a situation where I can use it, right? I've done it myself many times. I can't tell you how many things I've come from like conferences, even as a teacher, and been like, oh, and I have this big shiny folder of goodies, and then it goes in a drawer and I don't do anything with it. Yes, look at all those emojis. Perfect. So placing yourself and your joy as a priority is just going to be a natural outflow of these things. So that gives me some fuel to chat with you about this. And Jessica will drop the link in the chat so you can see it. So if we know that we need to do all these things, right? We know that we need an accountability partner, and we know that we have all this knowledge, but we need to use it. What I challenge you to do is try to take a little time every day and apply something small. It can be tricky, right? We think of ourselves as like, well, it needs to be the certain way, but I'm here for you. I want you to practice good enough self-care. Like, it's good enough, because it's really hard if your kids are all screaming and, or, you know, you've got deadlines and stuff to go like take a 45-minute bubble bath every day, which is what people think self-care is. It's not. There's more to it, right? So we have this course that we've made. It's a month long. You can do it as many times as you need it. If you find yourself getting into that cycle of shoulds or shame, or like, oh my gosh, I just need to take a break, I know I could be doing better, we want to bring you back to that. You're enough. This is good enough. Here are some practices you can try through this program called the Radiant Reset. And we call it your fresh start support system because it's like a pause button, right? Where you can move into feeling better and reconnecting to those practices that will help mitigate a lot of what we just talked about and help you develop new routines so that you feel better. So the Radiant Reset is 4 weeks long. It's a month. And during that month, you will have a little live teaching with me. You will have something to center your energy daily that you can use that's pretty fast. So you'll wake up, you'll center your energy, and then you'll move forward with whatever the topic is that we're talking about that week. Each week has a different topic, right, of those 4 weeks. Body and soul is our first week, where you connect your body and your spirit back to yourself, so that way you can start to lean into your intuition, right? Work and service. What looks like success for you? Let's connect to your authenticity. We'll do a time audit. Where are there leaks in your time? How can you be more efficient with your process? We'll talk about breath work, so you can start releasing some things that are holding you back from being in your service of your highest good. Love and relationships will be week 3. And this isn't like write a love letter to your future partner, because lots of us are partnered and fine with it. Even if you're not, we're going to look at how you treat yourself and why that's reflected in the people that you call in, business associates, clients, all of that, so that you can go back to loving yourself and creating relationships that actually fill your cup. And then lastly, home and environment. What's happening in your environment that's holding you back? We'll talk about feng shui, but like in a cool way, using a Bagua map to try to create success for yourself. So all of these aspects, we're going to give you bite-sized digestible bits that we love, that are high yield, and not every day, not so you have so much homework you feel like you're in grad school, enough that you can digest it. And we can help you moving forward out of that cycle of shoulds and into like a good enough, I've got this routine down. So what does it include? We're going to move, we're going to play. There's a bingo board that you can do that has things like, I want to do something with wheels or something with animals, you know, so you can lean into play and win some fabulous prizes. We'll do meditation, but if you have ADHD or trauma and meditation becomes difficult, you also get mindful practices. Discipline and accountability is part of it. We have ADHD, both of us. So creating routines and structures, we know how important it is, and we can show you how. Really establishing those routines and rituals is important. It's a blend of science and woo. There's reflection and flexibility. And we, if you're on this chat today, would love to offer you $111 off of that price. So if you purchase the Radiant Reset today, we will give you a link that will get you that $444 price. We will do that for you. So I would love for you to have access to that. What else do I want to tell you? So the idea that we kind of created here with our expertise is that you'll learn something, but then have some time to apply that little thing. We'll give you time to play, and then you'll connect with us, connect with each other, connect with yourself, and then repeat that for 4 weeks so you establish a habit. If you find yourself getting back into that cycle of shame or have another cycle, you can go back into it and take a deep breath, recenter your practice, get with some people that get it, some other intelligent, brilliant women who are also shooting themselves in the foot accidentally, and move into your most powerful, authentic self every time you want to up level. So it's your pause button to find your own good enough best practice, because I mean, I've taken things, and Jess, you can back me up on this, where, you know, the teachers are like, you need to meditate every day, and then you need to read for 30 minutes, and then you need to dance. And it's like, I don't have 2.5 effing hours in the morning to do 77 self-care items. I just don't. But I do have time to lean in throughout my day so that it begins to create positive change, because neuroplasticity is something that exists through your whole life. You don't have to continue on with the patterns that no longer serve you. If you're feeling stuck, that's what's happening. You have some kind of subconscious program that's keeping you in the place where you are. And guess what? We've done it, and we've moved forward and have a lot to share. And we're really, really excited to do this with you. I know you have a lot to share too. So creating that space where we can pause and share that and say, oh, I should really apply this and take what resonates with us is your most powerful tool. And I find that, you know, throwing down and getting into the game is the most important way to do that, right? By being like, okay, I'm going to invest in this. I'm going to invest some time, and I'm absolutely going to do it. And showing up for other people helps us recovering people pleasers actually follow through with what we need. Okay, so it's time for you to restart some habits you know you need, try some new super effective tools, create a routine, play and lean in. And our biggest takeaway is self-compassion. Please, if nothing else comes out of this talk, please understand that a lot of the things that happen that hold you back, they're not your fault. And if you lean in and get curious when you do those things, it will have a positive impact on what you create moving forward. Okay, we will support you so you don't feel overwhelmed. We will not let you get confused. Everything will be broken down. And there are trauma and neurodivergent friendly practices that we'll give you so that you can create the way that you need to, right? If you bring a friend, there's also additional money that you can save, and it's some accountability for them and for you. So you are more likely to continue the practice even after the Radiant Reset ends, which I hope the practices never end. So to learn all about it, I hope you'll visit us at sandybean.com. And I am ready to take some questions from all of you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and see your faces. Hi, everybody. So does anybody have questions about any of the stuff that we went over in terms of how smart women sabotage their success, about gifted brains, about anxiety, about trauma, about conditioning, any of that kind of stuff? Talk to me if you do. Jordan, where are you? Pay in full today, or if we attended. We only have a pay in full option. It's $444. So if you have questions about a payment plan, shoot us a DM and we can chat about it. Ooh, Jordan, I can't wait. Yeah, Lori, it's me. Hi, I am the problem. And I'm like, thank you. I'm glad it was amazing. It's so interesting to learn how our brains work. And, you know, I think it's Bruce Lipton, not Lipton. Is it Lipton? Maybe. Yes, that he talks about how we're born essentially a tabula rasa, like a blank slate, and how we download programs like a computer from 0 to 7 and sometimes up to age 14. And we run on those programs on a subconscious level. So unless you're paying attention to your patterns and programs, it's difficult to change them. And sometimes we don't even know what we don't know. So leaning in and getting curious when you feel a negative emotion, when you're trying to up level, allows you to say, oh, I downloaded that program. I need to pay attention to that and I need to do some change. It's just so important. And I think part of that, again, is education and people who have been there and been like, yeah, this is something I do and something I've done. To clarify, I meant you have to sign up today for the discount. Yes, we would like you to opt in today to get that discount. Yes, you can still opt in at any point. It's $555 for the 4 weeks. If you bring a friend, you both save $100, which is wonderful. And we have an elite version that is $888. It includes small group coaching like this once a week, where you actually get to ask questions. We help you apply things. There's a party at the end if you're local. If you're not local, we have other surprises for you, and a little gift box that you'll get something every week with some really neat stuff to help you enhance your practice. So we have this elite tier that we're really excited to share with women too, because we wanted to really have that extra touch point. For one-on-one coaching, I'm thousands of dollars, and I love what I do, and I make big changes for people. So this was a way that we wanted women to be able to lean into practice and be able to have each other and us as well to be able to help. So yeah, we don't have payment options set up at this point, but we would love to have you, and it is a worthy investment. I do think in our Stripe, we may have Afterpay and Klarna options. Click the link and check that out, because that'll help you be a little bit flexible too. It is super, super important that you begin to look at how your brain works, look at what you may be inadvertently doing to self-sabotage, because these are things that you didn't learn about and you want to unfold. And then we would love to help you move forward with that in terms of programming. Let's see, your approach to how my brain works is interesting. Was not aware of the rainforest. Yeah, check out Paula Prober. Paula Prober has this book called The Rainforest Mind, and she's really interesting because of the way that she, thank you, Beth, thank you. She's really interesting the way that she talks about it, because we don't always think about, I don't like the term gifted, because having a brain that works like that is not always a gift. And we don't, when we're out of school, it's not an academic impact, it's a social, emotional, and neurological impact that happens to us. So I love her approach. She's really, really great. Her stuff is great. I definitely think you should check it out. Again, it's sandybean.com. I would love for you to come and see us. There are additional free master classes if you want to sign up as well. The link, they're on that page, and then there's a link in my bio on Instagram. And I think on Facebook, there's ADHD Survival Primer for Entrepreneurs, which will help you if you have ADHD in general. And then I also have the pause button, where we're going to get a little bit more into some of these practices. Perfect. Maladaptive coping. Yeah, they're not deficits. It's just stuff you learned before. Thank you, Teresa. All right. The Rainforest Mind. It's Paula Prober. I'll put her in the chat. Paula Prober and her Rainforest Mind. She is fabulous. And even if you look at your neurodivergence, like autism, ADHD, giftedness, these neurodivergences, it's really interesting because we only frame them as deficits because of the hustle culture, because of what we've been trained to believe, right? They're hypercalibrations, yes, but they're deficits because of the expectations we placed on ourselves for a lot of reasons. So part of what we do, part of what I do, part of what the Radiant Reset will help you with too, is flipping that a little bit and looking at, okay, what if we look at this as a blessing? What if we look at this as a gift? Then what happens? What if we look at this as a zone of genius? Then what happens? Your self-compassion expands tremendously. And then you begin to approach things with curiosity instead of shame, which is what the Radiant Reset is designed to do, and what my coaching programs also can help you do. Thank you, Shanna. I'm so glad you were here. If you found this valuable, please share the recording with a friend when we send it to you. Send it out email-wise. Please make sure people know this information. I want them to understand that as a smart person, you approach the world differently, and that there's tools that you can use to help yourself. We would love to have you. If you are interested in having one of us reach out to speak to you about the Radiant Reset, if you don't mind dropping your email in the chat, you can DM it to Jessica directly, and we will make sure that someone reaches out to you. Otherwise, if you pop in and purchase that Radiant Reset, we will be in touch with your orientation materials, and we have some questions, and we'll talk to you a little bit about your gift box if you choose to opt into the prestige package, so we can do some coaching with you. Super excited to work with all of you. It is almost 10 o'clock. So if anybody has any specific questions, I am here. If you do not have specific, it's July 10th, Shanna, July 10th. And everything is recorded. So if you end up going on vacation, if you end up missing something or whatever and can't tune in that day, 100% we will be there for you. So it's July 10th and runs for a month. And I will be there daily, which as a person with ADHD, I have trained myself. It's pretty tricky, but bring a friend, introduce other people that might be interested in this. Come again and see some of our other free master classes. We are very, very excited to work with everybody. And we really believe with a great deal of passion in what we do. The woo and the science is really important to us. So I hope you found this valuable. If you would like to connect with us on social media, please do. I am think_bean on Instagram. You probably can find me on Facebook just under Sandy Bean. And I would love to hear from you if you loved this class. I'll be sending you the recording via email, and you can connect with us that way too. Everybody have a great day. All right, Jess, you ready?
I am.
Okay.
I am so excited.
Me too.
Y'all have a great day.
Have a great day, everybody. Bye.